Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Super excited to be here. The session which we will have now is focused, as it was just said, on green premiums, myth or reality. I'm Christian. I'm a partner, as it was said, in the McKinsey Metals and Mining practice. I lead our green metals work globally, and very excited to be here to talk about this important topic.
Good morning, everyone. Very happy to be here and share this moment with Christian. My name is Valère Moutarlier. I'm the Deputy Director General in the European Commission in charge of industry and decarbonization, and particularly looking after the CRM agenda of the Commission.
Perfect. Great to have you. So we as McKinsey obviously also look at, let's say, investment cases for green materials or low carbon materials. And the topic around how real is, let's say, not only customer demand, but also the customer willingness to pay for this is an extremely relevant question, because I think it's very clear customers want low carbon or green products. The question is very much more like, are they also willing to pay more for it? And why is this so important? It's so important because a lot of the business cases for these, let's say, new capacities which need to be built, asset conversions to be done, or greenfield projects to be set up, they need a solid business case. And for many, let's say, products, we still see that the costs are higher for, let's say, low carbon products. And so the question is, these projects need a certain green premium, need a certain willingness to pay from customers in order to lead to a, let's say, bankable business case, which then also enables new capacities. And I think this is why it's a super relevant topic, and I'm excited to talk about it. Maybe kind of taking the opportunity to ask a question to kind of kick us off. What's the general, let's say, EU thinking on critical raw materials?
So in the European Union for critical raw materials, I think it's fair to say that we have a plan. We have a good plan, both in terms of our legislative environment. We have adopted in 2023 Raw Material Act, where basically we play on three different pillars. The first one is basically financing concrete projects to deliver in order to reduce our dependencies. And for this, we have specific objectives. 10% of our needs sourced in the EU in terms of extraction, 40% for processing, and 20% for recycling. So these are the objectives that we put to ourselves in the EU. As you can see, we will not be covering all our needs together. So the second pillar is basically about partnering with other countries around the world. I mean, extremely happy and honored to be here in Saudi Arabia to discuss with the local authorities, but this is part of a wider diversification agenda that we have. Third element of our agenda, promote projects in Europe and beyond. and beyond. And what we want at the end is diversification, because, I mean, the cost of the resilience on the side of the EU might be huge. And we want to diversify for good and sustainable products. And this is where the green premium kicks in. We are extremely eager to be an actor to promote sustainability and ESG in the business of raw material.
Excellent. Excellent. So I think the key question is, who already today pays a green premium? And we as McKinsey discuss this with many of our clients, whether it's actually on the, let's say, producing side of the material or the offtake side of the material. And I think it's fair to say it's not a myth. There are certain customers for certain markets and products in those markets that are paying a premium today to kind of realize a carbon reduction or sometimes also actually achieve certain circularity targets. However, the challenge which we do see quite often is that on the one side, those premiums sometimes do not fully bridge the gap when we look at, let's say, the higher cost linked to low carbon products. And on the other side, that the mere volume of, let's say, which customers are then committing to off-taking might not suffice to kind of justify the business case for an entire project. And I think the question is a little bit around, for us, and this is, I think, super interesting now that we have you from the regulator here. What can bridge the gap if the premium is not, let's say, sufficient which the customer is paying, and this is hence leading to the fact that certain projects would not materialize?
No, first of all, I agree with you. I mean, this is not a myth. I mean, the way we are working in the Critical Raw Material Act is through selection of strategic projects. And what we see in this process is that the project owner genuinely bring the ESG dimension very seriously. And this is something that in our evaluation of the selected project, we take deeply into account, basically to the same level of the operational and technical element. So on the supply side, we can see that there is an appetite because of thousands of reasons. I mean, one of them being the reputational risk to come with a very tight ESG dimension to the project. We are also working on the demand side. So basically introducing some elements of lead market creation through different instruments. I mean, we will be coming later on this month with our Industrial Accelerator Act, trying to tie green products with public procurement or subsidy schemes so that there is these incentives that as regulator we can bring to bridge the gap. And I think that I do agree with you. I mean, this is not something that we will be able to impose all throughout the different projects and for all the different material. I mean, we need to be selective, and we will probably start at least with green steel in our proposal later this month.
Extremely interesting, extremely interesting. Yeah, I think this directly addresses the challenge which we typically see, that, let's say, right now, I think many players, if you look at offtake is still in many organizations steered by the procurement department. And I think in the procurement department, there's various factors deciding on from whom do you source. And I think what we see nowadays is sustainability, green, decarb is gaining significant importance. But obviously many companies, especially in Europe, are under severe, let's say, competitive pressure. And I think it needs to be a very thorough assessment, whether you can, let's say, pay a higher price for certain materials. So what is your thinking around combining, let's say, on the one side, facilitating new resilient, low-carbon projects on the one side, but on the other side, also keeping in mind that obviously the off-taking industries need to remain competitive, sometimes in a global scale or in a global context?
No, absolutely. I mean, this is, I think, really all about the calibration of the type of incentives or requirement that the public authorities would be putting. On one side, I think that we have, and this might be specific to Europe, but this is a very strong feeling in Europe. We have to better manage our dependencies and to better take into account, including in terms of monetization, our resilience. So basically, when I'm presenting the elements that we might put forward for green, made in Europe material, people are immediately objective on the cost for the downstream, which I understand. I mean, there is a cost to the resilience, and I would wish that our economy brains would pay a little bit more attention and try to develop a little bit better tools to try to integrate this cost of the non-resilience and the dependence. And so for me, we are in a situation where either you have the visibility of what is the impact of the green premium on your cost, or you do not buy it, but then you can have one of a sudden, the kind of huge unforeseen destabilization in terms of impact of the dependency and non-resilience on your business model. And I think that in how you project yourself in your business model, this should, I think, be fully taken into consideration. And
right.
just one word, I think that if you look at the raw material themselves, I think that the work which is currently launched in the context of the G7 on price floor concept is also something that basically is not unrelated with this issue of basically to which condition do you access an open world market. And I think that here you have also the possibility to think about, how to introduce concept of green premium in this work.
Very interesting. I like the idea of how you tie, let's say, the green aspect also to the resilience aspect, because I think that's a very important one. And what we are seeing many companies actually do these days is indeed put a strong emphasis on resilient supply chains and making sure, let's say, that there's no over-dependency on certain suppliers. So I think it's a very appealing idea to kind of more closely combine these two things. I think it indeed comes with the challenge that putting a price tag on resilience, I think, is a very difficult thing to do. But I think it's definitely something we and many companies can do better on, because in the end, I think you're right. If you do not care about this, the price in the end or the cost which you might bear might significantly outweigh, let's say, a certain smart investment or buying decisions today. Yeah?
And if I may, Christian,
yeah.
I think that this is something which is a kind of concept that we basically roll out in different thematics of our policies. So this is something which is strongly embedded in our critical raw material strategy. So basically, no over-dependency and diversification. And this is also a good opportunity for new actors, some that would basically choose CRM as part of their future vision for their own diversification, as it is the case here in Saudi Arabia. But this is also something that basically we try to roll out in clean tech. We have, with the Net Zero Industry Act in clean tech, the same willingness basically to regain autonomy and structure resilience around clean tech with the same approach, which puts some pressure on downstream cost, indeed, but gives such, I would say, that clears such, in a nice way, the horizon in terms of what are the disturbances that might impact your business model, which we have a lot of business communities behind us in rolling out this concept for clean tech, for example.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're taking a whole value chain perspective when you kind of think
Absolutely.
around these things and how to facilitate, let's say, decarbonization and resilience along core industries. Very, very, very interesting. One question I would have is, what's the feedback which you have gotten so far on these, let's say, regulatory updates? Because sometimes I think we hear from companies, the intentions are very good, right? But sometimes it is incredibly difficult for us to make short-term decisions now against our competitors, which really then pay tribute to, let's say, the aspirations of decarbonizing, the aspirations towards becoming more resilient. So what's the key challenge you get from companies? What's the feedback? I would be interested.
So what I would say is the first one is the difficulty in mixing our agenda on regulatory stability and foreseeability and our competitiveness agenda. So on the one side, the business community is extremely happy and is welcoming our new impetus in terms of competitiveness, simplification, reduction on admin burden, reporting requirement, etc. All the agenda that we are pushing very strongly through what we call our omnibus initiative, where basically we look all throughout one sector, for example, sustainability reporting, digitalization, biotech sector, and we push for an overhaul of the legislation so that we bring more simplification and less red tape, which is needed. But at the same time, the business community, needs to have a stable environment in terms of what are the objectives to be able to invest and not to have too many disturbing elements in terms of what is the regulatory environment. And this is something that we try to balance. This is what we did, for example, for the automotive industry with our initiative last December, and try to give more flexibility to the end of the combustion engine, but with no negative signal when it comes to investment in electric vehicle, for example. So this is one element. The second element is that when we talk to our industrial base, basically what we are doing through green premiums, what we're doing through more, I would say, conditionality for foreign investment in terms of added value, what we are doing in terms of what's in it for our domestic industrial base, for them is okay, because basically this is what they are facing in all the big regions of the world. And they say, okay, Europe is getting the way many other geographical economic blocs have been developing their own policies over the last 10, 15 years. So I think that we are at a stage where this kind of regionalization of the supply chain and this kind of integration of a positive policy and business case for more resilience is well understood and accepted by the European business community.
Interesting. Just to pick on this for 1 second, I think Europe, obviously, with its carbon tax or carbon cost, also is a little bit different to maybe some other regions in the world, if you're quoting this. Many, let's say, decisions in Europe, which we are still seeing, is we would not say it's not even always a willingness to pay for green, but sometimes it's a pure cost calculation that you're avoiding CO2 cost. And that avoidance of CO2 cost makes it a business case, after all. Do you think this will also, let's say, drive the future developments, or do you anticipate that the willingness to pay, especially if we extend it more towards resilience, right? Resilient supply chains is something which in itself will be valued by, let's say, key industry players?
Well, I think that, our citizens, our businesses for sure, but our citizens are very aware of the new geopolitical world we're living in. And I think that, they put some pressure today on this resilience concept at the same level where they put pressure 10 years ago on the Green Deal agenda. I think that for them, and this is very much what you see in all the Eurobarometers when you test and when you go back to the public opinion and the citizens, they haven't given up with our Green Deal agenda, but they want that we readjust it in the context of our resilience and our capacity to secure our future and to secure the capacity and the resilience of our industrial base, which is very important for them. So yes, I do see these two sides of the same coins as something extremely demanding for the governments and the public authorities, but something which is deeply entrenched in our public opinions and on which we have to strive to deliver.
Excellent. Very good. So I think, to kind of close, I think the interesting idea, what I really liked is, first of all, saying, yes, green premiums are real, even though they might not be applicable everywhere, and they might not sometimes be at a level which maybe some players have hoped for a couple of years ago. But I like very much the idea that you put forward in our discussion now to kind of take a broader view around green premiums, including the resilience aspect, right? Including, let's say, the sustainable supply chain aspect, to kind of get to a holistic picture for companies. And I hope that this will then also facilitate, let's say, business cases for new capacities, new investments, which then kind of help us achieve what you exactly outlined.
Sure. Thank you. I do hope so, but I'm confident.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.